It is my very great honor today to introduce to you Tomaz Salamun. But how to introduce him? I could use his own words from his poem, Who's Who. It begins, Tomaz Salamun, you are a genius. You are wonderful. You are a joy to behold. Or I could use words from his poem, History, which tells us Tomaz Salamun is a monster, and Tomaz Salamun is a sphere rushing through the air. I could use the apocryphal words of a friend of mine, a poet named Bradley Paul, who tells the story, I don't know if this is true or not, but I choose to believe that it is true. You can confirm. Who tells the story of when he visited Tomaz Salamun in his home country of Slovenia several years back and had tea with Tomaz Salamun and his wife and then made ready to go out sightseeing. When Bradley asked Tomaz Salamun how to get to some museum or park he planned to see, Tomaz Salamun said, "Ah, Bradley, you walk from my house down the street, which will be covered with birds. You will arrive at a fountain of white marble, and when you see it, it will be so beautiful that you feel your heart will break, that your head will catch fire, that you'll never breathe again." At which point, Tomaz Salamun's wife interrupted and said, "Oh, Tomaz, you walk 2 blocks and turn left." I could use the words of biography, which tell us that he has written nearly 40 books of poetry and that his works have been translated into 19 languages, that his work has been wreathed with honors and prizes around the world. But I think I can best introduce Tomaz Salamun to you not through any words, but through punctuation. This is a poet of the exclamation point. A poet for whom high flailing emotion and dramatic verbal gestures express the most basic movements of the human soul. This is a poet who believes in the human soul and believes that if it is a given voice, that voice must be exclamatory. This is a poet who knows that a heart that breaks and a head that catches fire are what make us human, and that's worth shouting about. Please help me welcome Tomaz Salamun.
My God, thank you, Kim, so much. Thank you, Susan, also. Thank you, Patrick. I'm really moved by this enormously beautiful introduction. What Paul Bradley said is a little bit invented. I don't really remember. But probably, as another young poet, Slovenian, when my wife asked him, because how would you describe Tomaz as a poet? He said, "Oh, I would never ask him how to get to the post office because he wouldn't be able to tell me." I'll read for about 50 minutes, and 2 of my poems will be read also in Slovenian for the sound. I'm a mason. I'm a mason, a priest of dust, fortified like a monster, a crust of bread. I'm a water lily, a soldier of holy trees, holy dreams, with the angels I shout. I'm a castle, a dead rock wall. I carry the boats, a ferryman, a wood. Come here, little herons, a seed. Come, gardeners, light, appear. Come, spread hands, pane of glass. Blue worlds, come, smooth plain. The wind of the sliding of creatures on different levels. The pastures are burned, lava seething, shepherds are waiting, restless, trampling with the wings, dogs smelling themselves, the wolf dogs. Here the memory stands, the order, the signs of the future. Zidar sem, svečenik prahu, utrjen kot pošast, kot skorja kruha, lokvan sem, vojščak svetih dreves, svetih sanj, kričim z angeli, grad sem, mrtva stena, ladje prepeljujem, brodnik popotnikom, les, pridite čaple, kri, pridite vrtnari, lud zasi, pridi razpeta roka, steklo, modri vrtinci, pridi gladina, veter drsenja biti drugih pol. Tu so pašniki požgani, lava vre, pastiri čakajo, nestrpno topotajo s krili, psi se vohajo, volčjaki, tu stoji spomin, red, znamenje prihodnosti. Jonah. How does the sun set? Like snow. What color is the sea? Large. Jonah, are you salty? I'm salty. Jonah, are you a flag? I'm a flag. The fireflies rest now. What are stones like? Green. How do little dogs play? Like flowers. Jonah, are you a fish? I'm a fish. Jonah, are you a sea urchin? I'm a sea urchin. Listen to the flow. Jonah is the roe running through the woods. Jonah is the mountain breathing. Jonah is all the houses. Have you ever heard such a rainbow? What is the dew like? Are you asleep? Great-great-grandfathers. Why did you draw a line? The line can be touched with hands. You can put a tree on it. You can wet it. You can lie on it. You can shut your eyes not to see it. You can go for a walk on it with your son in a gallery. You can step on one part of it with your right leg. You can step on another part it with your right leg and say, from here to here. You can patch earth onto it and eat wheat. You can realize there is no bran. You can say, every ram is made of a line. You can shout across a gallery, Tinkara, where are you? And Tinkara in the gallery shouts back, I'm pasturing sheep, I'm pasturing sheep. So the sound's waves touch the line. The lie cannot be used as a spice for food, has no attributes, and is without crevasses. You cannot make her creak. If you poke it into the earth to make it sprout, it won't sprout. It is without a sense of before noon or afternoon. It does not contain fluoride. It has no logos tied up around its waist. It has no logo tied up around its neck. It has no coil, and it does not drip honey. You cannot mistake it for Erwin Panofsky. You cannot walk her on the edge of a bridge. The relation between you can and you cannot is art. Therefore, the line is art. Go. Go. Grind up the pure light and wipe it away. Step into the pure light. It's there. It flutters like a flag. It kneels. No need to melt it down again. It's everywhere, in the humidity, in the white gill of the silver thread. There is a saying, it lulls you. You can make a little nose from the light, which breathes boats, graves, and air, the wall of the white we. To have a friend. I see the devil's head, people. I see his whole body. I never thought he could come so close. He longs for innocence, as we do. I have the sensation he was crammed into the wall for a long time. I have the feeling that his hands ache, that he is tender and absorbed in thoughts. He licks everything before killing it. He bursts into tears, scraping meat. He's blessed. He has no friends. He's walking alone in the world. I have the feeling he's saying something to me, that he's watching me with regret. He knows I could never sleep with him. We're both humiliated. He reminds me of the English teacher when he was pensioned off and young secret police recruits. It seems his beatitude is failing. The souls squeal when he tortures them. He doesn't drink them as I imagined. It seems he derives no benefit from them. I think he would like to have a friend to share goods and pleasure. He steps in the river and wets his head in it. He doesn't know how to speak with it. He splashes on the surface. I will leave him as he is. I will not talk to him. For Yakov Bardar. The stone of a fruit opens. The child turns yellow and falls. Boyars again and again cut our peat from the earth. Whoever now leans over his shoulder does not sleep. In fact, dredgers could not wound nests and birds. We are the news. We drown in light. We don't define the mirror, nor soft crusts in mouths. The seal fell even before the bosom splashed. Your knee, sculptor, stands. You repeat the gesture of magma with your hand. You have seed in your fingers and in your chest. You formed the rib as fire, as people's laughter was formed. We sit at the table, close to the barn, with a glass of wine. On the floor faces rest, beings bumped into your appalling gaze, and they are well. Acquedotto. I should have been born in Trieste in 1884 on the Acquedotto, but it didn't turn out that way. I remember the 3-storied reddish house, the ground floor with its furnished living room, my great-grandfather, my father, nervously studying the stock market reports, blowing cigar smoke and calculating quickly. When I was already 4 months inside my great-grandmother, there was a family council, the result of which was the postponement of my arrival for 2 generations. The decision was written down, the sheet stuffed into an envelope, sealed and sent to an archive in Vienna. I remember traveling back toward the light on my belly and watching an old man fussing as he measured the shelf, taking another body from the shelf and shoving it by the head down the air shaft. I had the impression I was 7 years old, and that my substitute, my grandfather, was a bit older, 9 or 10. I was composed. At the same time these events disturbed me. I remember that for a time I withered, most likely because of the strong light, and then my lungs flattened like a bag. When I reached the proper tonus, I fell asleep. I knew my body was down below, and in my dream I saw it many times. It was that of a slow-moving man with mustaches, a dreamer and banker his whole life. And this poem came I was a Tiaro, and it really came, and my nonno really was a dreamer and banker. He was rich when he was a young man. Then fascists came to Trieste where he lived. Slovenians had to leave. And then he was most of his life, he lost everything on the 29th crash, but also because he was a dreamer and he lost everything practically. Arrival in Saint-Nazaire. He thinks he'll recognize me, and he does. The arch rises above the trains. The landscape is old. The houses are low. We're both interested. We start smoking immediately. Lange swims to the surface. The narrow door of the 40th anniversary. His daughter, elle est juive. We drink. We start to address each other with tu. I want to read him, to devour him, to give him back his arteries, to carry him off like a barbarian, to cut softness, to respect and sadness out of him. I want to explain him the ardor pouring over one beyond this door, power and light, amour fou of ripe age, and the enemy, logic and elegance, the beaten track of the perfect instrument. You have to crush it, to walk through it. I'll give him all of this, breathe him, watch him, crush him to pieces, because I miss what I threw away, the weight of the imprint. Even so, I'm stronger than he is, wilder. I can tell him more, I can lead him better, and first I'll almost kill him on the rapids to restore his courage. He needs some Russians, someone who still smells Mexico. But for me, this is the ideal view of the sea. The wound will be a fabulous pool, and it's also far away. Ladinos, Marranos, Sephardim, we have heavier and duller memory than the Ashkenazim. O God, for the day to come when I can mold the world with my Slovenianness. able to play strong, dense games. The difference. Did you open his eyes? Did you think he was unfriendly? I didn't open his eyes. I didn't think he was unfriendly. Will you burn him? Will you bring him wings? I won't burn him. I won't bring him wings. What's his profession? Driver. He drives in the dust all day. Does he splash when the snow falls? When the snow falls, he clings to chains. Where did you meet him? In the woods. He said he wanted to be a pilot. He wanted to know if it's much warmer down south and if there's much difference between footprints. You know, these poems are taken from very, very different moments of my writing life. This one, the body of Giordano Bruno, which I don't understand, but it also came as on this incredible pressure somehow. I adore Giordano Bruno's writing. You know, Giordano, if you try to read Giordano Bruno, it's like total expansion, strange expansion. You don't really understand, but it's the body of Giordano Bruno. Light brown bug, queen mother, your pellet of shit is dangerous. That's why they burned him. He flooded the Protestant imagination and Catholic images spilled over the brim. Sigillum sigillorum sleeps, unless touched by the mother of the pyramids. All my life I've been writing the seals. I'm the water that flows through his body. The steak tames the muscles. The virus in the computers which prevents the seal from running is the secular illness inherited from the defense. The light brown bug, queen mother, you who have access to the iron hooks hanging like the tools of countenance in the mouth, not even a path through the field to Menorca, a stone wall that would have nothing to do with this. Reading the seals abolishes matter. Andro has to wiggle as he climbs. In a couple of hours both of us are worn out. Then we loll between the walls discussing for the next day the dropping of the sacred bees. This is connected with my brother, who's a painter, and we have strangely the same rhythm. You know, we start to somehow what he wants to paint, and my language wakes me up in the night, and he's able to, and he paints very intensely for 3-4 hours, the huge painting, and then he's burned out. The light withdraws into silence. The Holy Spirit gives a cap to the void, air to the fish, suddenly connecting from one point to the other, the view of the horizon. You can see the legs of birds coughing in an envelope with velvet springs. They spread tons of heraldic kitsch, attentive as milk. The grass is authentic. Light brown bug, queen mother, blood drips from the kitchen, from the chickens on the trains, from a lunchbox prepared with love at the turn of the century. Brown fig jam trenches in a desert where the axis rotates on its points, lances and dustmen sweeping the garbage into a pile. The trap. Gold doesn't evaporate. Gold isn't water. Gold is the eternal manure, because capital is death which doesn't disappear. I don't change. Only my value rises and falls. In vain I wait for a man to crush my mask. I'm only chasing rabbits in the process called the courtesy of wizards. Dwarfs step up from my shoulders in the process called history. And there are only two things no one really knows. I'm everybody's lover, and where's the crime? Red flowers. Red flowers grow in the sky. There's a shadow in the garden. The light penetrates. There's no light to be seen. How then can the shadow be seen? There's a shadow in the garden. All around big white stones lie scattered. We can sit on them. The hills around are just like the hills on earth, only lower. They look perfectly tender. I think we too are perfectly light. We hardly touch the ground. When I take a step, it seems the red flowers draw back a little. The air is fragrant, both cool and burning. New beings draw closer, some invisible hand smoothly placing them in the grass. They're beautiful and quiet. We're all here together. Some of them, swimming toward this place, are turned around and cut off. They disappear. We can't see them anymore. They groan. Now my body feels as if it's in a fiery tunnel. It rises like dough, drizzles apart in the stars. There is no sex in heaven. I feel no hands, but all things and beings are perfectly joined. They rush apart only to become even more united. Colors evaporate. All sounds are like a sponge in the eyes. Now I know. Sometimes I was a rooster, sometimes a roe. I know I had bullets in my body. They crumble away now. How beautifully I breathe. I feel I'm being ironed. It doesn't burn at all. God. God boils and observes. He steps in the honey with his head. He soaks his beard in kasha. When he makes mountains, they flash. He drills his thorn. He has. He washes his garden brushes. He wipes his face and eyes so the world will be silent and mute. He opens its window. When he makes a noise with the window pane, the putty, the glass, we know it, impressed. Or, first ice, then pine woods, then ice again. Human lives are fluff. Lines of refugees, houses in flames, shrieks like the scratching of colors on the skin of salamanders for 1 billion years. I want a yellow spot. No, the sun is sprained. We think a lot of where our paws are, rungs on which wheat stalks strain. Red powder is enough. A little sulfate is enough. And the smoothness of China, will it hold? Dregs of coffee as if poured from the buckets of giants. Odessa is built here. Here are hunting dogs. A crown in breast of time. The secularized version. How the chicken rotates on the spit. A window pane yields no warmth. Who made it transparent? Who owns the energy nibbling under the teeth? Have you ever spilled a bucket in the desert? Like throwing snow to the hens. Sunflower. Are you asleep? A sunflower. Black seed. Gold. Are you asleep? The gods spread their wings over you. Black venom. A closed miracle. Are you asleep? The dew flattens you. You sleep. You awake bewitched. Dust and whirlpools of trains, of field paths. You're asleep, and you're expecting a bride. A black rain, drops of light. A black sword, a sunflower, golden bondsman, a puppy and a weed. The steps of tired people. The boats, loaded with soil. Your death, sister of the sun, a statue of greeting. In the glow I meditate on my sins. Crickets, a red brick driven into the ground. Pumpkins, brothers, winged animals. Sunflower, we share the land. Silence of turning. This is now a longer poem I've read at Yado. Yado was such an incredible place for me. This is upstate New York, a writer's colony, where you're really taken care of. You can completely... And it was also the way how I survived my little space in Slovenia, a small nation, 2 million people, with in past times not always very good political situation. I was several times under many pressures, but several times saved by American generosity and invited here. Feast. By the way of all spheres, on steep rocks overgrown with segments of color, covered with chalk the children have broken, we watch fragments that keep rising, compressed as if under the weight of water, their slow takeoff, a signpost, white curtains raised. There is no hardship in breathing, precisely here in this circle, no hardship in breathing, and also onward, ahead, it seems as if balance is built in, unbreakable, each time widening caves, widening and narrowing like the activity of unknown, unimaginable respiratory system magnified under a microscope. Invalid are nostalgia, night, melancholy, laughter falling as snow, everything parallel, everything there can be reached from here all the way in between. We're watching the reactions to this condition, slowly, step by step, the outer leaves of the artichoke float away. We can imprint optional memories of notions. There was a circle. There was one just because we could not use it. Whatever the notion, they are all concentrically disposed, far and near. A freckle that was once an elevator is a priori array secured by intangibility. Initiation is incredibly slow work, similar to the turning of summer, winter, and stars. Is this about how we have eaten? Did we make a meal each time? Enough so that in process a tiny crack is left, and everything regenerates incredibly fast, and therefore now is. You, who keep a diary of growth and victims, look. Maybe many of them can read it. Light falls around. Only here, of course, nothing falls. It gets out. The center, the source of energy watched by us during this procedure is empty. The cosmos makes the locus vanish, eats it up. Energy, not consciousness, jumps across, is in the negative. Therefore everything is in something, what roughly, because of a notion, can be described as a grain of sand, all space the remainder, like dust after sawing wood. On 1 cubic micron, there are endless galaxies, each with its enormous space, nights, moons, suns, with constellations that confound us, compressing our membrane. The intergalactic and, of course, these injected communications, too, are only oppression. Along this window, in this window, there are innumerable other civilizations, innumerable other cosmological systems. Thus, suffering does not matter, layers do. This is what I show here. 1001 nights. It smokes from the fridge, the sun, the sky, the wine, pine needles on red earth, across the bay, the oak. Deep is your body in the sea, in the golden mandorla. The sail splashes your face, a dunked, salty deer. We're swimming on the other island, straight rocks. The heather is violet, green-brown. The soil is eager. Temple. And these are small sections. Where there is nothing to say, the light of disappearance exists. Time moves, lava glows. I'm underneath the gutter, a silent mushroom. Copper rocks, the flame is mute. That's for me. Terrible, that's for me. Little corner, little red dry corner. Who is the spring? I'm buried here with you, thus I have everything. Like Buddha I gaze into the motionless, into the musk and rock. I'm taking hands, I drink the Sava river, I see a cocked hat, I draw straws. My head is very small and hairy. You speak to me, you speak to me. I'm tied up with the wedding guests. Happiness makes me vomit. Who are these quiet white horses? God, how round you are, how kind. The position of the thorn in your crown, the mill stopped in the rock, in the apple, in the seed, no mouth for you under the sky. Time doesn't investigate those frozen by the hours. No cascades for the gentle ones. The savage doesn't lie on the shield, and the thunder that poured out of your mouth fattens gems, crumbles the door of hesitation. The foam on the muzzle speaks of pain. I dry the cow, pumpkin, to hear me, I have no one else. You fire, brother to your brother, was disfigured in the sun. Again the roads are silent, dark peace. Again there are bees, honey, silent green fields, willows by the rivers, stones at the bottom of the valleys, hills in the eyes, sleep in the animals. Again the children are restless, blood in the whistles. Again there is bronze in the bells, an aura in the tongue. Travelers greet one another. The plague strengthens the joints. Wild deer are in the palm. The snow shines. I see the morning, how I hurry. I see skin in the pie's dust. I see shrieks of joy, how we head toward the south. Toledo man, two little hitchhikers. The images are clear. The flowers are timid. Dark sealed sky. I hear her scream. The time for love awaits. Time of tall statues. Silent clear hinds. Dreamy linden trees. How the hills glow. Hunters wipe their sweat. The bloom is the harbor of the bees, but they do not endure in this position. They soar and fly away. I'm heading for the car. The sun is going down. It is time to drive home. We will eat and go to bed. Dog. Dog, what do you do with your hair? You roll in the mud like a pig. You stand up and spray me. You blink and yawn. Dog, who was your mother? Don't you have brothers and sisters? Did they all leave you and go to sleep behind some corner? You're hungry, lazy and mongrel. Dog, I have never seen you before. You run on the street and stop. You run on the sidewalk, then on the street. Stars will fall on your head. You're strange. Leave the tin cans alone. Dog, you're so strange. This poem is very strange. You know, I was in Mexico. I've seen a dog, and in his eyes, I've seen something so horrible that for a moment I was afraid that I flipped out, and I don't understand why. But then it was an earthquake 2 days later, and I thought, the dog told me it would be an earthquake, only I didn't understand. It was strange moment. Black Sun. Inferno happened when Dante explained us how he functions sexually. Before then, it did not exist. And Petrarch, who like a green dog on 4 wet dark green legs sniffs Vaucluse and touches his clothes. He thinks about the books his father burned, not about Laura. It has to do with a race. Who is faster, God with his sand, or we with our tongue. Sand is a tongue of fire, tongue is the fire of sand, fire is the sand of God. I'm falling, I fall like an oak doomed to die, and also women want to be more than metaphor, with a moist, round, soft skin, with a drunken scent of warm mushrooms. They drive me insane. Walls of hell, why do I stagger? I miss the smell of burnt flesh. Nature makes me tired. It tires me so terribly that I sink in the cave. Stars move apart. I'm the sun with no air. Fake fire falls upon the children's black hair, advancing into the hearts so they burst like buckles. Their mouths yawn open as if they were mummies. They rave in benediction. They gargle my name as I get dressed. When I adjust my collar in front of him, the mirror, everything is already late. Slow motion. And here, where are the cremated ones? Did they die thin-plated? Did Imam tell them? The story goes, first you walk on white, white snow. Your knees are naked as you kneel. You don't know what hangs above. Earrings, fish hooks, Chinese chimes. It rings and tingles. The whiteness is unbearable, porous and numbered. Then you step on the silent potato garden. Potatoes somehow gurgle in the air, named the night's field. They turn around. They glitter. The names shut themselves like cupboards. Nobody scratched. And the farthest away Sanskrit flows very tenderly. But every little brook is relative, as at the end it hurts you like a dentist. The first language is also the superstition. The origin is already drawn. And the questions, if things are adhered in growing, if names lead to something, if dog is mate, all in this white, blue, rare, warm kasha, the name adepts rightly call, as they call it, the ocean of love and grace. Tomar. This is a poem. You know, Tomar is a place in Portugal. It's a strange castle. It seems to be very esoteric. Apparently Pessoa, I didn't know when I was there, but apparently Pessoa was absolutely obsessed by the secret numbers and secret relations in this castle. And I also had kind of vertigo there, which I couldn't explain. The boat in the altar shrine, in it the grey stone nostril, the sky, you, drowned in mucus, with a tongue pressed to the nasal bone like a gnat in amber before it is hatched, swimming away. And also a hoar-frost on spruces of my whip while we travel. How is it that we don't avoid rocks? We waddle on skis, we rush roots, a mellow, they falter us and hunt us. The sepulchre of bones is a chicken, sanctum is the real, the cuirass, the plaster casts crackles of the layer is torn, the stones of the white skin. I catch you in my palm, I stop your skiing, your last skiing up and down in my palm like huge waves on the landing strip. Your eyes are yellow, you shake off like a swan. With your clumsy beak, the mountain's boots, you punch my heart. Who cares? I hardly feel it. So we squat in the underground apse, in the scepter, and the dung in the Templar's eye. We were calcium in the moss. We gimlet likewise vault the cone, the innkeeper's lakes and lagoons, a whiff on my knee. My head sacred, sweet, and smooth. I roll you like a dog of wood soaked in the brook. You kneel correctly with ears, then hairs, then blades of eyes on tentacles, then only warmth, home, the Jesus Christ's heart. From the pile of bones we take soft lumber. Did we hear enough membranes blows of the dark, sweet red booming? I spin the propeller of your chakra with my muscle like, with the right hand, the propeller on biplanes. You put on goggles. I slide you down the chute. Are you here? I don't know, unnamed. I don't know. Look at me, when you like, when I die, when it shines, when my body is extinguished, when I breathe, when I go. I didn't write like this yet. I don't know what will happen. I see stars. Does it spin round? I don't know what spins round. Can one hear? I'm out of the cup. I eat bran. You found the cap. Everything goes into me. I glued myself. I write slowly. You are what I see. When I'll breathe, I'll die. The reward is terrible. I have everything. They're lumberjacks. The hour came. There's apricots. I hear touches. There's a lock. They said. They danced. Give me a cap. I breathed it. I fell asleep. You were fast. I was late. I have heard. To Mitka. If I set fire to the white frame of the house, will the flame burn brighter than the weight falling of our bodies? Brighter than the samba, brighter than my juicy head. I'm in the snow, you're dancing under the gigantic green trees with your sad, juicy eyes. We're listening to the rhymes and slippers of your paintbrush, of meadows in which you see moss and what's under the mixed moss. A white lynx scratching in a dark green throat. Does the sky ever stop itself up and rattle? Where do you rest? In an avalanche or on the earth? I gorge myself here, gorge myself, swelling to keep from being torn apart in the heights by the clouds, pink, blue, and violet, and the flowers like Tiepolo, the air cleansing itself behind him before the light floods and crushes us. I long for solid earth in heaven, to lick your eyelids and stay even, so they do not rise. Eternity is cruel and crystal. It ruins everything alive. It replaces people and loves and does not open the well. With your hand you dust the glass. You do not break it. Let every love die as a man does. Death protects us. And now that one longer one, written in Mexico when I was with Metka. Probably written under the influence of Nijinsky's diaries. I didn't know then, but probably because it's a mad poem, I think it was a major influence for me at that time. I'm a carnivore, but a plant. I'm God and man in one. I'm a chrysalis. Mankind grows out of me. My brain is liquefied like a flower, so I can love better. Sometimes I dip my fingers in it and it's warm. Nasty people say others have drowned in it. Not true. I'm a belly. I put up travelers in it. I have a wife who loves me. Sometimes I'm afraid she loves me more than I love her, and I get sad and depressed. My wife breathes like a small bird. Her body soothes me. My wife is afraid of other guests. I say to her, now, don't be afraid. All our guests are a single being, for both of us. A white match with a blue hat has fallen into my typewriter. My nails are all dirty. I'm thinking hard now what to write. One of my neighbors has terribly noisy children. I'm God, I calm them down. At one I'm going to the dentist, Dr. Mena, Kairloch. I'll ring the bell and ask him to pull my tooth, because it hurts too much. I'm happiest in my sleep, and when I write, the masters pass me along from hand to hand. That's essential. It's just as essential as growing is for trees. A tree needs earth. I need earth so I won't go mad. I live 450 years. Tarsir Bazar has been alive 600. I don't know if that was him in the white coat. I still can't make them out. When I write, I have a different bed. Sometimes I start pouring out more like water, because water is most loving of all. Fear injures people. A flower is softest if you close your hand around it. Flowers like hands. I like everything. Last night I dreamed my father leaned across toward Harriet. Other women frighten me, and so I don't sleep with them. But the distance between God and young people is slight. There's always just a single woman in God, and that's my wife. I'm not afraid of my guests tearing me apart. I can give them anything. It will just grow back. The more I give, the more it grows back. Then it launches off as a source of help for other creatures. On some planet, there's a central storehouse for my flesh. I don't know which one it's on. Whoever drinks it will be happy. I'm a water hose. I'm God because I love. Everything dark in here, inside, nothing outside. I can x-ray any creature. I'm rumbling. When I hear the juices in my body, I know I'm in a state of grace. I would have to consume money day and night, and if I wanted to build a life, and still it wouldn't help. I was made to shine. Money's death. I'll go out on the terrace. From here I can see the whole countryside, as far as Dolores Hidalgo. It's warm and soft as Tuscany, though it's not Tuscany. Metka and I sit there, watching. Her hands are like Shakti's. My mouth is like some Egyptian beasts. Love is all. Moses' wicker basket never struck the rocks. Miniature horses come trotting out of the level countryside. A wind blows from the Sierras. I slide head first into people's mouth and kill and give birth. Kill and give birth, because I write. And the last one, first I read it in Slovenian too. Poljubi oči miru. Poljubi oči miru, ki ne se razlije po drevesih. Sonce zunaj sije in ne buči več tako neznosno. Duša upa spet začutiti svoja rebra, svoj sok. Mraz mi je dobro del. Če piha in hodim in gledam avtomobile, mi življenje vrne sebi. Najbolj strašno bi bilo, ker pri odhodu ne bi nikogar spoznal. Predaleč bi bili, da bi se jih dotaknil ali čutil. V črni temi ne bi ohranil spomina na ljubezen. Skoraj ledu se dela čez vrelo lavo. Počasi se bom morda lahko spet zadrsal, hodil po prašnih cestah, otresel suknje, če bo prašno. Preveč medu in miline je bilo. To je vse. Od prevelikega razkošja se človek razleti. Kiss the eyes of peace. Kiss the eyes of peace. May it stream down upon the trees. The sun shines and no longer roars so intolerably. The soul again hopes to sense its ribs, the sap. The cold has done me good. If the wind blows and I walk and watch the cars, life brings me back to itself. It would be terrible not to recognize anyone at the departure. They'd be too far off to touch or be felt. In the pitch darkness, I would not hold the memory of love. A crust of ice forms on molten lava. In time, I might again be able to slide off, walk those roads of dust, shake the jacket off if it's dusty. There has been too much honey and grace, that's all. Too many blessings break a man apart. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much again for coming. Remember, there are refreshments, books, conversation in the special collections room.